Morning, everybody. I'm Jim Epperson. I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. Great to have you all here. We really appreciate it. One of the reasons that we're always going to start this meeting by briefly talking about what is Directions, where are we going, is we want to make sure we live up to our obligation to you. Obviously, you are a supporter of Directions. You want to know more about it. That means that sooner or later, somebody in the recovery community or the community at large is going to ask you a question about Directions. And the last thing we want to do is put you in an awkward position where it's kind of like, well, I'm really not sure. So we're going to try to make sure that we answer all your questions by starting with the presentation each time. And there'll be time at the end of this. If you have a question, by all means, please ask it. And if we need to talk later, we will do that too. Okay? Sound good? All right. So let's start with the mission statement of Directions, a dignified place where recovered volunteers help others achieve sobriety based on the 12 steps of AA. Looking closely at that, recovered volunteers, that's the key. That's going to be the heartbeat of this place. Most of you, I'm sure. Recovered volunteers meaning these folks have worked the 12 steps. They've had a spiritual experience. The obsession to drink and use has been lifted. They're recovered. What are they going to teach? Well, they'll teach classes here, they'll do lectures here, and very importantly, the recovered volunteers will work one-on-one with residents here. What will they teach? One thing. And this is probably the one thing we want you to remember more than anything. The only thing we will teach at Directions is the 12 steps of AA. Our singular focus, nothing else. A dignified place. Important. It's going to be important. With Charles Kennedy and his design mind leading the charge here, this will be a dignified place. It'll be a place where there's lots of sunshine, lots of natural light, clean, modern interior. There'll be mature trees that we save, and there'll be beautiful gardens. It'll be a nice place. We try to boil it down for you to just 4 words. This is what Directions is all about. This is our promise. Directions will be more affordable and will produce better results. And those two usually don't go together, do they? If the more affordable, the results are kind of hazy. We're pledging to do both. And what we want to do in this presentation is show you how. But let's look at more affordable. There's a big gap in the level and the expense, the cost of care for drug addicts and alcoholics in North Texas. If you look at all of these counties highlighted on this map, there are 27 such facilities in North Texas. 17 of those are limited to only indigent care, meaning if you make a penny over the federal poverty level, you cannot get care there. The federal poverty level for one person is about $11,700 in earnings a year. And for a family of 4, it's $24,000. So, if a person or a family makes more than that, they can't get treatment at 17 of these 27 facilities. So that's kind of on this end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, the facilities that treat drug addicts and alcoholics range anywhere from $10,000 a month all the way up to $50,000 a month. And I think we've seen some that are even more expensive than that. So you can see what we have here. We've got like polar opposites. Over here, only reserved for the poor, the indigent population, and over here, very, very expensive. Big gap, right? Big middle. So what do we do about that? That's going to be our sweet spot. That big middle is our target. Our monthly cost to stay here is about $4,000. $4,000 a month. How are we going to do that? Well, the people who are most qualified to teach recovery, we've already talked about. That's the recovered volunteer. Key word here being volunteer, right? Volunteers, as volunteers, you know, when we carry the message to new people, we're not getting paid for that, as we shouldn't. So volunteers will be the people who work most with our residents. That's a big way that we're going to be able to offer such an affordable rate. Another factor is we're never going to be in debt. We're never going to pay interest. We're not going to pay debt. An example, we raised the money it took to build this building, to buy this building, pardon me. We raised the money outright. Then we bought it. We didn't take on any debt to purchase this building. So when you look at what we're going to be doing in the first year, we will be self-sustaining. In other words, we will cover all of our costs and have a little bit left over if in our first year we only achieve 50% occupancy. So in the first 12 months of operations of Directions, if we're only at 50%, which we expect to be more, but being conservative, if we're only at 50%, we will meet all of the expenses and bring a little bit back into the nonprofit. So here's kind of what we're about when it comes to the 12 steps at Directions. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And what do you suppose the main thing is? That's right, the steps. Learning and teaching the 12 steps is our main thing. Give you a little look at momentum, where we've been, and what's been accomplished so far with the help of people like you. We completed a comprehensive business plan that also is a very, very comprehensive financial model. We've been backed by the Ferguson Road Initiative. It's a very important group here in East Dallas, represents almost 40 different neighborhood associations. They came in and voted unanimously to support us in building Directions in their neighborhood. After we met with them, learned more about them, and were responsive to some initial concerns. 100% backers. HKS, I'm sure you've heard of them, an esteemed international architectural firm. They're doing all the drawings and all the architectural work for us pro bono, which is fabulous. Great company, great sense of commitment to this organization. We won zoning changes at the Dallas Planning Commission and also at the Dallas City Council without delay and without objection, which is not always easy to do, especially when you're doing this kind of work, right? And then lastly, a generous supporter who will remain nameless, David Elliott, has offered a 100% funding match, and that changed everything we're doing. It changed every single thing we're doing, because now we own the building. And as you'll see, we're moving forward, almost completed with the next step. I'll tell you about that. Phase one, we purchased, this building is 22,500 square feet, and as I mentioned, we purchased it outright. We have the back parking lot, too, that goes with that. Phase two, we're nearing completion, and what phase two is acquiring property around this building for gardens, for other parking areas, and if the market demands it, for building out additional housing for longer-term stay, 90-day stays. Where we're really at right now, Charles has us focused on phase three. And phase three means that we'll be making a presentation like this that we're sharing with you this morning to people where we try to raise $2.75 million. And we're going to try to get in front of some big families and foundations and individuals who can knock this out in pretty good bites. And what that will do is that will give us the money to retrofit this building, to buy all the furniture, take care of all the fees, to open Directions to operation. So let's kind of review what we are and what we aren't. We're a 12-step recovery campus, focusing solely on the 12 steps. We're not a treatment center. Again, we're never going to say anything bad about a treatment center. That's just not what we're going to do. We're not going to dispense medicine. We're not going to have therapy. We're not going to have professional counselors. We're going to have recovered volunteers. We're a place for people to get well. We're not for court-ordered clients. We have nothing against court-ordered clients. Some of us have been those. But we're here for people who want to get well, not because they have to, not because they're being forced to. We're going to serve this big mass middle we talked about, not the indigent care, not the really high-end expensive, but this gigantic middle market that we find here in North Texas. Private pay, meaning we're not going to take insurance. The $4,000 a month that we're going to charge is going to be private pay. If we take insurance, we have to make sure that there's some government mandates and some programming considerations are in what we teach, and we don't want to do that. We want to teach one thing right out of the book. Most of us, when we got in and we were detoxed, before we were detoxed, things didn't make much sense. We're not going to be a detox unit. People will be detoxed before they come here. And then lastly, recovered volunteers. That's who's going to help the newcomers. That's who will handle the lectures. That's who will handle the study. That, of course, is who will be sponsors one-on-one for newcomers. Directions, a dignified place where recovered volunteers help others achieve sobriety through the 12 steps. Perfect. And our promise in doing that, we're going to be more affordable and we'll achieve better results in the process. by what we've laid out for you today. And I hope this look has given you a little bit to think about. I hope it's stirred your thinking, but more importantly, all of us hope that it's stirred your heart a bit to help us get to where we want to get, to help us open directions as soon as possible. Thank you all very much.